Ladies and gentlemen, is Ohio State hiding something? This totally unsubstantiated rumor that I'm about to start says, yes, they are. But we'll get into that in just a second and some other breaking news coming out of Michigan. First off, I have to apologize in advance. We are, in fact, getting some pretty severe storms tonight. So if you hear thunder in the distance, that's why. There's nothing wrong with your speakers, it's just nature. I do think it's interesting, though, because the area in which I live has been going through a bit of a drought. And then the NCAA decision on sign gate comes down, and all of a sudden, it's raining, which can really only prove something that I think we knew all this time. God is a Michigan fan.
Touchdown, Wolverine!
All right, so starting off with the breaking news coming out of Michigan, five-star true freshman offensive tackle Andrew Babaloa is unfortunately feared to have suffered a season-ending injury. Josh Henschke from, I believe he's from the Wolverine, can't remember off the top of my head, did say that he can confirm this. He has a left knee injury. Speculation is that it's his ACL, which would indeed put him out for the season. Incredibly unfortunate. You know, him and Evan Link were going toe-to-toe for that left tackle position. I do believe that Evan Link was favored to win the starting position for left tackle. So not exactly like we have to worry about shifting guys around on the offensive line all of a sudden here, but Andrew Babaloa was definitely one of those true freshmen that they were expecting to make an impact on the team basically immediately. And he had the talent to do so. So unfortunately, Michigan is going to be lacking some depth there, but obviously none of that is really important because the kid needs to get better, and we do wish him all the best. But, you know, maybe he can get a medical red shirt, come back next year even stronger, and he's got an additional year around the team and some experience. So there you go. Maybe there's a bright side. In any case, definitely hope that Andrew gets better and has a speedy recovery. Now, let's get on to the other news real quick. Ohio State named Julian Saying their starting Saying. His last name's hard to say, and that's stupid. They've named him their starting quarterback, which basically confirms that they're going 0-5 against Michigan and losing to Texas. I'm just kidding. I don't know this guy. I mean, I heard there was a bit of a quarterback issue with them from other Ohio State people and journalists. So who knows? Anyway, my original intention for this video was to go through some of the comments on the No Hammer video that I put out on Friday because people are freaking out. I mean, it's awesome. No hammer. You know, Tyler Mays here says everyone needs to buy a big blue squeaker hammer for the games. That would be amazing. I would love everyone to show up to the Ohio State game and just squeak, 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 squeak. That'd be hilarious. Joe Blue says shambles because Ohio State fans are in shambles. Cumulus says Michigan paid the NCAA NIL type money to avoid the proper punishment of a 3-year postseason ban. All SEC, Big Ten, and ACC institutions agree. Really, Cumulus? Have you spoken to all of them? Like personally, did you speak to them? You know, I had a person comment on the channel probably a year ago or so when we first started talking about Signgate. Not a year ago. That was 2 years ago now. Holy crap. This is nonsense. And we were just pontificating, me and Clifford, the other person on this channel, were talking about what we thought was going on. And somebody commented and said, you should have submitted a FOIA request like real journalists. Bro, we're a couple of dudes with full-time jobs and a crappy YouTube channel. We're not going to submit a FOIA request. Think First Media says, go blue, Tim L. 1997. Connor Stallions probably had incriminating stuff on his phone over the CMU investigation. Well, yeah, so that actually might be a thing. We're going to talk about that on Wednesday night. Central Michigan, it has come out that they did ask Connor Stallions to be on the sidelines and help decipher MSU's signs. You know, Central thought they had a real shot against MSU, apparently. And frankly, they did. But it was this comment here that I was really going to spend the bulk of this video addressing. And I'll address it. We'll talk about it real quick. But then we'll kind of veer into something else. Sort of related, but it has to do more so with that unsubstantiated rumor that I want to start. And I'll get into more disclaimers before we talk about that. But first, all right. The Thinker 6141. They let you off a penalty because they didn't want to punish today's players for what yesterday's players did. Yesterday's players didn't even do anything. No one on the 2023 national championship team, at least not players or coaches, were found to have done anything. The NCAA even said that they had no evidence linking any players or coaches to what Connor Stallions was doing. I've never heard anything like that before in my life. That is ridiculous. I don't think it's ridiculous, but I will say that the Penn State and Ohio State examples aren't great. I mean, Penn State, they punished players for no player was involved with the Jerry Sandusky thing except when they got hurt. So, I mean, maybe there was an argument to be made for the fact that Joe Paterno knew, if he knew. I don't really know where we ended with that one, but there's that. And then Ohio State, current players or 2011 players didn't really have much to do with what happened in 2010 or 2009, whenever the tattoo stuff went down. So, I don't like that either, honestly. But it doesn't matter. They said you're guilty. The whole world knows you're guilty. The championship was not legit. The whole world, right? Okay. Do you think anyone outside the contiguous United States? No, I will do you one better. Do you think anyone outside of the CFB ecosystem, the college football fan ecosystem, even knows what you're talking about? This is not the Crusades. This is not the 1940s. This is not the Cuban Missile Crisis. This isn't the Ukraine-Russia war. I mean, this isn't something that the whole world is going to look at and be like, oh my gosh, Michigan got their signs differently. That national championship is tainted. I can see little kids in Africa, okay? They're going and helping their village get water. They're down by the Nile. Maybe they're having a swim, having a good old time. And then it comes over one of them. One of them just, but what about the fact that Michigan got their signs differently from other teams and they cheated and the national championship doesn't matter? Their dad's going to look at him and be like, son, what are you talking about? I digress. Now that there's a new standard for punishing programs when you have to worry about the current players, is any school ever going to be put on punishment again? I don't know how to answer that because the NCAA is likely not going to exist in the near future. Another unsubstantiated rumor I will start. But also the College Football Commission is a thing that's going to be starting next year, from what I understand. So I have no idea how they're going to litigate these things. We'll just have to wait and see. I guess the point that I'll make with it doesn't matter. They said you're guilty. The whole world knows you're guilty. So here's the thing. The NCAA said that they had evidence and then never produced the evidence. So we're just going off of he said, she said. It's all hearsay at this point. The NCAA says that they have this. The NCAA says that they have that. They haven't produced anything. The only thing that's been produced is evidence that Central Michigan asked Connor Stallions to be on the sideline. And from what I understand, that is a violation of NCAA policy. So yes, punish Connor Stallions. I will now say Connor Stallions did something wrong in terms of that Central Michigan thing. Does it provide a competitive advantage to Michigan for him to go and scout out Michigan State? Not really. Michigan State was never going to beat Michigan. I'm sorry. 49-0? Come on. That was never going to be a thing. Michigan did not need Connor Stallions to beat Michigan State. And apparently they didn't need Connor Stallions to beat Ohio State, Penn State, Alabama, Washington. I mean, get real here, dude. So, all right. Like I said, I was going to spend the bulk of the video talking about that. And we'll come back to some of these other comments here because there are some really good ones here. For instance, this guy who is just weird. Anyway, I saw this tweet. Okay, because Hayes Fawcett posted saying that Savion Hyder, the 5-star running back that Michigan, Ohio State, Tennessee, and Georgia are after, is committing tomorrow, Tuesday. I believe sometime around noon, if I'm not mistaken. Where should he commit? Dog Pound here says if he wants to win, he'll go to Ohio State. If he wants to cheat to win, he'll go to Michigan. If he wants to continue a legacy of great backs, go to Georgia. If he wants to lose, go to Tennessee. Ouch. Poor Tennessee. Catching strays. Kiddos for Campbell says Ohio State fans are wildly hypocritical with this picture here. So it's, if you, just to understand it real quick, it is claiming that as of November 24th, 2001, Ohio State started paying players illegally. Then over the next 18 years, they lose twice to Michigan, and that's it. And then NIL eliminates the cheating advantage by paying players. From what I have seen, there is no publicly identified or substantiated evidence that Ohio State paid players illegally. There are rumors, there's speculation, just like what we have with the SEC. And most of us will probably look at the SEC and be like, yeah, there's no way they didn't pay players. But from what I understand, there's no evidence, at least not with Ohio State. So then I thought, hey, I know of a pretty solid research assistant that might be able to help me out with this. So I went over to Bing Copilot and I said, what evidence is there that Ohio State was paying players before NIL became legal? And obviously it comes out with this is no publicly verified evidence that Ohio State was directly paying players before NIL became legal in July 2021. However, there are a few key incidents and patterns that have fueled speculation. For instance, obviously, Tattoo-gate from 2010, 2011. The interesting thing here is that ESPN sued Ohio State for access to the related documents. But the Ohio Supreme Court ruled that student records, including those tied to violations, were protected under FERPA. We'll get into what FERPA is in a second, because I can't remember what it stands for off the top of my head. Speculation and rumors, like many powerhouse programs, Ohio State has long faced whispers about boosters offering under-the-table incentives, preferential treatment, unofficial recruiting perks, but none of these claims have ever been substantiated. FERPA and lack of transparency. So Ohio State has historically used this FERPA law to shield student-athlete records from public scrutiny. In 2012, the Ohio Supreme Court ruled that even documents related to NCAA violations could be withheld. Why is this important? Because this offers a legal precedent that makes it difficult to verify any claims of improper benefits unless someone inside the program speaks out. So unless someone from Ohio State says, hey, we cheated, you cannot sue Ohio State for documents to find out whether or not they cheated. And this apparently includes documents that relate to NCAA violations. Now, does this mean that the NCAA can't get those documents? Does this mean that if the NCAA tried to get those documents, but Ohio State cited this law to keep those documents from the NCAA, does the NCAA then declare that, oh, well, you're not cooperating with the investigation, therefore Ryan Day is suspended for 2 games. Make sure one of those is Western Michigan, blah, blah, blah. I don't know. I don't know how that would work with the NCAA, but that brought me to this article here. Now, real quick, I'll just read off the title of this article. So this is Ohio State keeps details of football players' revenue sharing deals secret. Here's why, by Joey Kaufman from the Columbus Dispatch, a reputable paper, from what I understand. So this section, titled Ohio State Football and the Impact of Privacy Laws. The prospect of transparency in the nascent era of revenue sharing has collided with long-standing student privacy laws. When Ohio State rejected the Dispatch's public records request, it cited the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, FERPA. Legal experts see FERPA, a federal law adopted in 1974 in order to protect the confidentiality of student educational records, as a delicate issue for schools. Quote, FERPA is certainly a rule that institutions are very careful of and don't want to violate, said Pia LaPalambara, a partner at Church Hiddle Antrim in Indianapolis and former athletics administrator at Ohio State, because it can lead to a host of issues both from a federal level and from the student whose records may have been compromised. A violation can result in schools losing federal funding, which surpasses more than $1 billion for Ohio State between research grants and student financial aid. Okay, so Ohio State can cite this FERPA law to make sure that student records are not compromised, including those tied to NCAA violations. It's legit. In terms of Ohio State doesn't want to impact that $1 billion that I saw. Where did I just see that? There you go. It doesn't, they don't want to impact the federal funding that they get, which surpasses $1 billion. That's not an insignificant amount of money. So it's definitely understandable that they don't want to violate that law. But then how does the NCAA investigate violations at Ohio State tied to student athletes? That's kind of the question that I have here. So it goes into Tattoo-gate a little bit more, saying in 2012, the court ruled in favor of Ohio State in a lawsuit filed by ESPN that sought documents related to the scandal known as Tattoo-gate, in which 5 players exchanged memorabilia for tattoos in violation of NCAA rules, leading to the resignation of Tressel and a postseason ban. The unanimous ruling said students' educational records were not limited to academics and financial aid, but included any information that was related to them and maintained by the school, establishing a precedent courts have relied on for a decade, more than a decade. If it's held by the university and it's about an identified individual student, they're going to say almost anything counts as covered by FERPA and can't be released under the Public Record Act, said Susan Gills, a professor emeritus at Capital University Law School. Which means if they have documentation that's related to the students that may be also related to an NCAA violation, for instance, paying players, they still can't release it. And they are legally protected. The Ohio Supreme Court says so. Again, unsubstantiated rumor. I will put that out there. It's just, this is really interesting. And I thought, that's kind of icky. This feels like a little weird. And yeah, I'm definitely having a giddy Michigan homer moment. But I don't know, whatever. I mean, again, it's an unsubstantiated rumor. So without courts again weighing the school's use of FERPA, the revenue sharing contracts are expected to remain hidden in the near future. That's regarding the current NIL contracts that they have with the players. Institutions have a strong reticence to want to put them forward. La Palambara added, and the public wants to see what is happening in these agreements. I don't see that as just changing through conversation. Yeah, no. So it says here a legal challenge might prove this or might prove inevitable because people want to see what these contracts are, these NIL contracts are all about. But in any case, it means that Ohio State gets to keep any documentation related to student athletes completely and totally private from apparently everybody. Federal law is not the only roadblock to the release of Ohio State's revenue sharing payments with players. The school also invoked state law, claiming section of the Ohio Revised Code exempts agreements from release. Youngstown State said the same thing. State lawmakers revised Ohio's NIL legislation late last year, making changes that included exempting NIL deals from the requirements of the Public Records Act. Adam Matthews, a Republican state representative from Lebanon who introduced the changes, said the intent was to protect the NIL deals between athletes and businesses that are disclosed to the school for review. The terms are more analogous to a business relationship rather than the public records of the general business government. So athletes have been striking deals with various third-party entities since 2021 when the NCAA began allowing NIL. But as Ohio State classifies its direct payments to players as another form of NIL compensation, it holds that Section 3376.06 exempts their disclosure as well. So we're getting kind of in the weeds now. But the thing is that they're basically citing FERPA as reason to not disclose documentation about anything regarding NIL. But my concern was mostly about the fact that they don't have to disclose any documentation around NCAA violations. So again, I say, how in the world is the NCAA going to investigate anything having to do with Ohio State? Now again, I went through this. I spent 19 minutes going through some of this information along with a couple of breaking news items. You might be thinking, this is ridiculous. Why did I spend 19 minutes of my life listening to this nonsense? Well, frankly, I could say that kind of stands with basically any video we post on this channel. Why did you spend time out of your life listening to this nonsense? It's an unsubstantiated rumor. I've said that a million times. I kind of went down the rabbit hole. I thought that was really interesting, and I just wanted to put it out there because the fact is that there are a lot of things going on at like SEC schools, and there have been rumors at Ohio State that players were being paid illegally before NIL was legal. And with Ohio State and probably some of these SEC schools, we'll never know the truth. And that's kind of the sucky thing about these investigations and these scandals and all that, is that who knows what the truth is. And whether you came down, against Michigan or for Michigan during the Signgate stuff, you can't look at the NCAA and tell me that they're an objective litigator. You can't tell me that they're an objective judge or a just judge. They didn't like Harbaugh as much as anyone that wasn't affiliated with Michigan. Harbaugh was more than outspoken about paying the players. His political beliefs and all that too definitely rubbed some of those more elites the wrong way. So, I mean, they absolutely had motivation for getting him out of the game, and they have motivation for keeping him out of the game. They gave him a 10-year show cause for Signgate plus 4 years for Burgergate. And in that same letter about the notice of not the notice of allegations, about the punishment, they said that they had no evidence linking Harbaugh to what Connor Stallions did. They just said that Harbaugh didn't help with the investigation or didn't cooperate with the investigation, which, again, I've said a million times, that's extremely subjective. They can define whatever they want as not helping with the investigation. Sharon Moore's text messages, he deleted them. He got them back, and they found nothing incriminating in them anyway. And yet that's still considered not helping with the investigation and got Sharon Moore an extra game suspension because of it. It's very subjective, and it's frankly really stupid. Which is why I think, it's best for college football. And, Ohio State fans, rival fans in general, are going to look at me and they're going to say, of course he's going to say that. He's a Michigan fan. And I am. There's no way around that. I'm biased, for sure. But I think it's just best for college football if we just kind of all go, okay, that was whack. We're going to move on now. Because Connor Stallions isn't at Michigan. And it doesn't sound like he's going to be for a very long time, if at all. It doesn't sound like Connor Stallions is going to be in college football ever, at least for the foreseeable future. So let's move on from that, all right? And if you needed a reminder, 2024 happened. 2023, the second half of 23 happened too. Michigan went through Penn State, Ohio State, Alabama, and Washington without their sign stealer. 2024, Michigan went through Ohio State and Alabama again without their sign stealer. So it is what it is. We've already gone way over time, but I figure we'll hit a couple of chats here anyway. And let me know if you like longer shows or longer episodes like this, longer podcasts. Do you like putting something? Normally, I like putting something on that's like a half hour long or something like that, and just letting it go while I do the dishes or something. Because otherwise, if you watch these shorter videos, you have to keep finding new videos to watch while you're supposed to be cleaning and your wife is nagging you about it. I'm kidding. My wife doesn't nag me to clean. I do it willingly because I'm a good husband. Samson1515 says, all football teams try to steal signals. Why do coaches cover their face and have a complex system to pass plays? Yeah, exactly. I mean, Steve Dace brought this up on his show. He said, the NCAA claimed that Connor Stallions was stealing signs to give Michigan a competitive advantage. Duh. That's why teams do everything that they do to try and get a competitive advantage. I mean, come on. Let's see. I'll go to this one. Samson, again, says Ohio State had their cheats also, plus the South may have had a dirty little secret why they won so many national titles. Samson, I implore you to get spell check. Players may have allegedly been paid to stay in the South and walk around the rule system. Michigan has many haters. They are in attack mode. If anyone thinks a $30 million fine is getting off, this fine will hurt bad. It will affect football operations. Yeah, I mean, I've heard varying thoughts on the fine. I've heard people say it's nothing. I've heard other people say it's something. I mean, it's not great, but, Charles Sparker? The letter from the NCAA clearly explained that they cheated. The punishment was just light in the sight of many. The NCAA said that the NCAA believes Michigan cheated. Again, they didn't actually produce any evidence. Zeppelini 6275 said Wolver Queens. What? All right. Wolver Queens fans are the O.J. Simpson of college football. Everyone knows you did it, and your rep is trash. Okay, I'm not even going to bother with that one because whatever. Mickey 34JB, in shambles? LOL. If you're happy that you got away with it, congratulations. Well, again, I don't believe that Michigan cheated. So, whatever. Let's see. The Fire Show won. The NCAA proved Michigan cheated, but the judges let them go free. Forever, the college football world can read the transcript on how they cheated. Celebrate your forever stained football program. Bo Schembechler would be kicking people's asses. No. I mean, because, no, I'm sorry. Like, I don't know what to tell you guys. I don't think Michigan cheated. I'm sorry. I mean, it sounds like Connor Stallions may have skirted the line on a couple of rules, and then with the Central Michigan stuff, he absolutely broke that rule. So, you know, it is what it is, and he got punished for it, but Michigan didn't cheat. I'm sorry. To the Black Eye fans, that's weird. We got punished with fines, suspensions, and 2 people are banned. You're just mad it's not the punishment you wanted. Yeah, I mean, it's true. It really is true. Anyway, we're at 26 minutes now, so I'm going to go ahead and call it there. Oh, wait. No, let's do this one. Okay. Intrepidus 3378 says, there is always going to be an organization that unifies the university presidents. You would need that in order to have any coordination. If it's not the NCAA, it will be somebody else or something else. You would need that to have any coordination. I'm not sure what you're referring to. If you mean that, you know, there's always going to be an organization that unifies the university presidents. Yeah, I mean, I don't think really anybody likes the NCAA at this point. I think pretty much nobody is a fan of them. The NIL rollout has been an absolute disaster. People just want guidelines, guardrails for NIL to figure out what to do, how to navigate it, and the NCAA completely dropped the ball on that. And yet are hitting schools with NCAA violations relating to NIL, but you know nobody knows how to navigate NIL. So how do you know if you're violating the NCAA while trying to just keep up with other programs? It's frankly, it's a disaster. But I'm going to go ahead and leave it right there. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. What do you think about my unsubstantiated rumor? Do you think maybe there's teeth to it? I don't know. Go ahead and share it everywhere because I've always wanted to spread a rumor. No, I haven't. That'd be bad. Anyway, let me know what you think about it. I'm curious your thoughts. Don't forget to join us in the chat Wednesday nights at 8:30 when we go live, and we will catch you in the next video.